All right, everyone, I'm just going to check and make sure we're streaming live over on Facebook. Appreciate everyone tuning in tonight for our Making Bird Connections lecture series. We have two great speakers tonight, and we'll have a live Q&A at the end. So if you have questions, you can drop them in the chat or comment section, and we'll get to as many as we can possibly get to in our time. And for those joining on Facebook, thanks so much for tuning into our live event. And for those joining us on Zoom, your questions will get first priority, so feel free to go ahead and be ready to drop those down in the chat. All right. I think we're looking good. Perfect. All right, so everyone, my name is Eva Lark. I'm the Senior Manager of Public Programs for the Seabird Institute and Hog Island Audubon Camp. Welcome to our Making Bird Connections lecture series, where we bring a bird-focused presentation right to your home. These presentations are free, but no donations are encouraged to help fund our programs. This month, all of our donations will help fund Hog Island Audubon Camp operations. You'll find the link in the comment or chat box down below. No donation is too small. It does allow us to provide these free programs to you. Tonight, we are so proud to have our very own Adam DiNuovo as our guest speaker. Adam will be sharing how volunteering and conservation go hand in hand. Adam is a seabird biologist with many years working in the field, but currently Adam is the volunteer coordinator for the Friends of Hog Island and is on the island all season long. Adam, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're looking forward to hearing all about volunteering.
Hold on one second while I figure out this technology. Can everybody hear me? Eva, can you give me a thumbs up? Okay, we're all set. Well, thank you all for joining. I'm going to talk a little bit tonight about volunteering for conservation, more specifically, what the volunteer experience is like working with Friends of Hog Island. That's the volunteer crew that I manage out on Hog Island at the Hog Island Audubon Camp. So I just want to talk a little bit about what that whole experience entails as a volunteer, and then the impacts and the reach that has for conservation in maybe a little bit bigger scale. I guess we'll start, most of you know because you're tuned into this, but Hog Island is where this job is located. And I just wanted to set it all up by, this is a very special place. It's a mostly undeveloped island, about an hour north of Portland, a quarter mile off the coast of Maine. So that kind of just situates where this is located. And obviously home to the Audubon camp. This camp has been running for over 80 years. It's a residential camp on the north end of the island on a small, about 30-acre peninsula attached to the much bigger, the bigger undeveloped portion of the island. You can see here, these are kind of like the layout of the island, very old buildings. The campers are coming to learn about birds and nature, classes from art to photography. You can see tide pooling. People are coming obviously for birding, lots of great birding on the island. So there's usually a large group of campers every week of the summer. Here's just a little bit closer look at the campus, just to kind of give you a feel for the place if you've never been there before. A lot of the buildings are very old. So you have the old buildings, you have lots of campers living on the island. And you probably would think, like, how is it possible for a small staff like we have, full-time staff and seasonal, to be able to handle this kind of workload? And the real answer to that is we can't. So that's where the Friends of Hog Island come in, the volunteers, but also the organization in general. The organization originally started in 1998, kind of a group of folks that had a love for Hog Island that wanted to get together and help out the Audubon camp. The current The current reincarnation of the Friends of Hog Island was really the brainchild of Juanita Rushdie, who was our executive director. She was also really the one that managed all the volunteers and most of everything else from 2010 when it started until 2018 when they hired the VERS volunteer coordinator, Tony, who was there prior to me arriving. So once this group got together, they got a 501c3 nonprofit status 2011. And it's been operating ever since. The main mission, the only mission of the Friends of Hog Island is to help support the camp. And we do that with cash donations every year since its inception. At least $50,000 has been donated to the camp. Also do that through in-kind, lots of different in-kind donations, whether it be renovations or plantings, solar panels on rooftops, equipment, you name it, and the Friends of Hog Island have touched it. I mean, almost everything on the island in some way has been touched by the Friends of Hog Island. I'm going to give a quick example of the types of things that we do, the major projects. So this building is the Queen Mary. This is the first building you see when you get off the boat if you come as a camper or a guest or a volunteer. And this building, with global climate change and sea level rise, was getting a little bit of water in the ground floor. This is a shot from this past fall. The Queen Mary was raised 3 feet to keep it out of harm's way. This was a Friends of Hog Island project through donations through Friends of Hog Island. So we do a lot of this kind of work out there, making sure that these old buildings and really the structure of the camp remains sound. It would be hard for Audubon to do this on their own, and Friends of Hog Island really takes care of a lot of these projects on the island. But really the heart and soul of all of this is the Friends of Hog Island volunteers. So the volunteers come out on the island every single session of the summer, and they volunteer all week long. Some of them stay for multiple weeks. Since 2010, there's been 76,000 volunteer hours given to the operation of the camp, which is a huge deal out there because we wouldn't be able to staff all of those positions. So the volunteers are really the lifeblood of the island. They really keep the island going year after year after year. When you first get to the island as a volunteer, this is the first building you see once you pass the Queen Mary. And this is really the hub of all the volunteer activity. This is where you would live as a volunteer upstairs. Downstairs is the kitchen. We're going to get to all the different things that we do there. And then you're kind of hovering around this building for most of the time you're there working. I like to think about the volunteer options at Hog Island split into 2 different groups. On either end of the season, in the beginning or at the very end, we have a work week where it's either an opening work week where we have about 30 to 35 volunteers come out on the island. There are no campers yet. It's not open for the season, and they get the camp open and ready to go. Without this week, we wouldn't be ready to receive all the campers and do all the programming. So there's lots of different projects for any skill set, anything that anybody is welcome, and we have jobs that anybody could do. And here you can see painting. There's a lot of painting you can imagine off the coast of Maine in the winter. It's a very harsh environment, and the buildings just get a lot of wear and tear. And that's one way the Friends of Hog Island volunteers come in the spring and kind of spruce up everything. They also do work like this plumbing. You need to run plumbing to a new building. The Friends of Hog Island volunteers are usually the ones at the tail end of the season or in the beginning, digging trenches, laying pipe, doing things like that. All these things that you might not think about, but are really critical for keeping this machine and this Audubon camp going. Lots of construction projects. This is a group that was working out on the porch of the bridge last spring, getting everything ready for the campers to arrive. So just lots of different projects like that. Then we sort of transition into what I would say the bulk of the season, which is the camp is open, there's campers coming, and there's a whole lot more going on besides just that construction things that happen during the opening and closing week. We do all this food service. So the volunteers are responsible for serving all the meals to all the campers, and the kitchen is really like the lifeblood of the island. What makes the island go in the summer is the kitchen and the food. Lots of campers that are out on field trips all day. They're very hungry, and a lot of things revolve around the meals. This is also a great way for the volunteers to interact with the campers. You get to know the campers by serving the food. It's really fun to see how the campers are just excited about what they saw that day. They talk to the volunteers about it. They get to know the volunteers. So it's a really cool interaction that you get to see out there, or for me, that I get to see between the campers and the volunteers. And a lot of our volunteers have been coming for a long time. And even the ones that are new, they kind of, this enthusiasm about the camp is very contagious. And if you've ever been there, you know, and if you haven't been there and you come, you'll know what I'm talking about. Also, with all the dinner service and all the people eating, there's a lot of dishes to do. And the Friends of Hog Island volunteers are also in the back. After every meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, every day the camp is open, they're washing lots and lots of dishes. I can't even stress that enough. It seems like we do a whole lot of dishes. We're either handing you a dish or we're taking it back and we're washing it. And it's a very, it's a mundane task, but they're very happy to do it. We're all very passionate about it because we know that all of that work helps the camp run. So we kind of like, it's a theme that's just reinforced. Without this, like this backbreaking work really going on in the background, nothing that you see out in front of that camp could even happen. And laundry, lots and lots of laundry. This is a pile of laundry after one of the session ends and all the laundry is brought down. Now this, the volunteers don't necessarily have to do. This pile of laundry is my responsibility. Once the camp ends, I take this off. We have it professionally cleaned and brought back. But laundry is a big part of the volunteer experience for the Friends of Hog Island. And once I bring the laundry back, here's a volunteer hauling the laundry in carts. You got to think we're offshore, so the laundry has to come back onto the island. Then it gets turned over from me to the volunteers. They load it into carts, haul it up to the place where we store the laundry, and then it's sorted and it's divvied up into sets that we will use at the end of the week, where we have to clean all of the rooms from the camp from the week before and set up all the rooms for the camp that's going to start in about a day and a half. So it's a very fast whirlwind process. And all of that, the cleaning of the rooms, and getting them ready for the next group, making sure everything is just right with the little touches. Volunteers are putting flowers in flower vases, making the beds, cleaning all the rooms, and just getting it ready. So when the next camp comes in, those campers find a nice, beautiful island, really nice conditions for living, and just have a really nice, easy time with it. And this is kind of the last project of the week, is making the bed. So taking all that laundry, sorting all that laundry, and then hauling it out to all the different residential buildings. So the beds can be made and everything gets ready for the next group of campers. But it's not all work. It's a lot of work, probably about 30 hours of work, 35 hours of work, but there's lots of downtime for volunteers as well. So during your downtime, you're more than welcome to explore the island. Like I said, it's mostly undeveloped. It's a really beautiful place with very well-marked trails, gorgeous spruce forest. I mean, it's really a magical piece of wilderness that's really unspoiled, which is becoming rarer and rarer. You can find some places, like this is one of my favorite places on the island. It's called the Center Island Trail. The volunteers are welcome to hike out here. And when you're out here and there's no one else around, it seems like you're the only person on the island. You would never know that there might be 100 people around the main part of the camp. It's a nice way to get away, a little bit of solitude, and exploring this island helps kind of give you that connection to the island. At least it did for me. You could also, like a lot of the volunteers, just sit down and rest, hauling the dishes around. It is a lot of work, and it's nice to sit down, chat with your fellow volunteers, and form those bonds that we see with the long-term volunteers that are here. This is just a view from the porch where you're living. If you come as a volunteer, you're going to be living upstairs in the building. This is looking off towards the sunset. So you're more than welcome, when you're not on duty, just to sit down and just soak in the postcard view that is every single direction that you look when you're out there on the island. You can also, if space permits, you can tag along on some of the camp's excursions out on the boat. So the camp goes out a lot. They're on Muscungus Bay a lot. And when the opportunity arises, some of the volunteers are able to go out with the campers and just check out Muscungus Bay, birding trips. They learn a little bit about the natural history. So it's a really good way to experience some of what the Hog Island Audubon Camp has to offer by becoming a Friends of Hog Island volunteer. There's also evening lectures. as well. So you're more than welcome as a volunteer to sit in on these lectures. Great speakers, all different disciplines, like anything you can think about regarding birds and art, photography, lots of different things that would interest most everybody. And it's really, it's a top-notch lecture series that happens every week, week after week. I think one of the biggest things for me over the years that I've been coming, and we'll talk a little bit about my story towards the end of this presentation, is just seeing how this is like a really big, it's really a big community. And as you come onto this island and get involved with the camp or with the volunteers, you become part of this giant extended Friends of Hog Island family. You can see here all these volunteers, you know, they worked hard all week long. You know, they formed really deep friendships. They're really passionate about the place and the camp and what the camp does, and kind of the mission of Audubon and of the Friends of Hog Island. They're very dedicated. They're very proud that they're FOE volunteers. They know when they look around that island, they can see all the different things that either they themselves or Friends of Hog Island have affected or touched on an island, and it's literally everywhere that you look. So I think that's a really powerful result of joining the Friends of Hog Island and becoming a volunteer, or other volunteer groups like that, is that bond that you get, that connection that you get, and that feeling that you're really doing something bigger than just washing dishes or making beds. One of the big things, I think, when you think about the impact of being a Friends of Hog Island volunteer, is like the most obvious impact is that without them, the island wouldn't be able to run. So the camp wouldn't happen. And without that camp happening, then you wouldn't be having the lectures like this, where they're lecturing and teaching a group of teenagers, or at family camp, there's lots of kids or just adults of all ages. They're coming to Hog Island and they're learning about all of these different things, and about sustainability and treading lightly, about birds and about conservation and bird-friendly planting and photography, and all of these different things that really do help aid conservation. And then all of these people disperse after the camp ends, and they're heading all over the United States, and they're talking about what they learned, and they're teaching other people about what they learned. And there's not even really a way to measure the conservation impact of just that alone. So without the Friends of Hog Island volunteers, all of that spread across the country wouldn't be happening. So it would be a huge loss for conservation and for birds in general if the camp was not around. And without the Friends of Hog Island volunteers, most certainly none of this would be happening. And also, because the camp is there, and Audubon is the steward of the camp, they own the island. And if that camp keeps running, then the island stays the way it is. And I think this is also very important. I know this is very important for a lot of the current volunteers. They love the place. I mean, they love the mission, they love conservation, but the actual place is something that they love. So this place will stay unspoiled if the camp stays around, and we need the Friends of Hog Island volunteers to keep the camp around. Everywhere you look, like, you wouldn't be able to come out on this point like I do a lot of mornings. This is the sunrise, and a lot of volunteers will come out here as well. You wouldn't be able to come here and just see this, where you don't see this very often, from a pristine, wild piece of Maine wilderness out in Muscongus Bay. It's gorgeous, and it does something to you when you're able to experience this. Or the trails, no one would be able to walk these trails anymore. And I bet there's 1,000 different stories of how these trails and walking these trails have impacted people in various parts of their lives, not just in conservation. The little shade garden, every little aspect of the island that we see now and take for granted, all of that would go away if the Audubon camp wasn't there. And without the Friends of Hog Island volunteers, that camp wouldn't be there. And then, of course, the wildlife, the nature, the deer, the insects, the birds, all of these different things that are out there that you see everywhere you look. You see these things all out there because that island is so well managed, and it's still wild. It's one of these places where you can go out there and see things the way they, I would say, used to be in a lot of places where they're not anymore. So I think that's a very important role of the Friends of Hog Island, is not only keeping the camp together so that message can be spread across the country, but preserving the island itself, which is also a huge benefit to having a group like the Friends of Hog Island, and something that each and every volunteer and every hour that they work is really helping ensure that all of these things remain. I also want to talk about maybe an impact that's a little bit further from Hog Island, puffins. Maybe no one thought I'd be talking about puffins. I do try to sneak in a seabird wherever I can, but here there's a real connection to the islands of Maine. So the Seabird Institute, Hog Island Audubon Camp, falls under the direction of the Seabird Institute. Also, the Seabird Institute has 7 seabird islands in the Gulf, around the Gulf of Maine, and they're actively protecting birds, protecting seabirds like puffins and razorbills and multiple different species of terns. And they have people out there working with these birds every summer. So by supporting the camp, you're supporting the Seabird Institute as a FOE volunteer, which is supporting the conservation of these birds in a very real way in the Gulf of Maine. So not only are we ensuring these islands stay pristine and bird friendly without predators moving in and all of this, there's also a lot of people that are employed seasonally by the Seabird Institute, by the research side of the Seabird Institute, and they're out there working on these islands every single summer, and they're learning about seabird conservation. They're learning about seabird research. I myself worked on these islands, and I was learning about seabirds while out there. This is Allie Smith. This is just an example, one example of the thousands of people that have come to these islands. She worked out on Eastern Egg Rock. She was learning about seabirds, and now she currently works at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. So she has taken her interests and her skills that she kind of honed out on Egg Rock. She actually came down to Florida to work for me in my job that I had previously. And then after that, she went to the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. So by supporting the Hog Island Audubon Camp, like every Friends of Hog Island volunteer does, you're supporting the seabird side of the same project and supporting young biologists like this that are going to make their way out in the world and quite literally are saving birds for a living. So by washing dishes and making beds and doing all of those things, ensuring that the Audubon camp stays around, you are impacting things that you don't even realize that you're impacting. And Allie Smith is just one small example of that. So I talk real fast, so I'm going to be wrapping it up pretty soon, but I'm going to tell a story about myself. I'm going to kind of end with this story and how this is my Hog Island story, which it's impacted me in very profound ways. Hog Island. I first came to Maine and I worked on the seabird side of the Seabird Institute doing seabird research in 2012. And I stayed until 2014. And then I moved to Florida, where I was the shorebird program manager for Audubon, Florida in Southwest Florida. Starting in 2012, not only did I work with the seabirds, but then in the fall, I came over and was kind of like a guest instructor for a program that they had out at the camp. And I immediately fell in love with the place. I already had a love of seabirds. Obviously, I've been doing it a long time prior, but I fell in love with the Hog Island Audubon camp and just seeing the instructors, the way it all worked, the way the people came to learn, the way the volunteers fit in, all of that was really, it was kind of, it was like a spark for me. It kind of just showed me what a big group of like-minded people that thought like me, the kind of things they could accomplish. And then every year after 2012 until 2021, I came back as an instructor every single fall. And while I was in Florida, the thing I looked forward to the most every single year, I mean, besides visiting my mom at Christmas, just in case she's watching, was coming back to be an instructor at Hog Island. Not only because I love teaching people about seabirds, but because I got a spark. And I realized this really quickly. When I was working in Florida, some of my projects, it's not all fun. We had a lot of things happening in Florida that would kind of make someone that did the kind of work that I did kind of start to lose their way and kind of feel like, why am I still doing this? Like, what's the point of doing this? And I would get like that. And when I would come back to Hog Island to be a volunteer, to be an instructor, I would get that spark again, and it would kind of rekindle that flame in me and that passion I had to work with birds and to work in the conservation field. And while I was in Florida, coming back to Hog Island, getting that spark that was really provided to me by the camp existing, and then the volunteers at Friends of Hog Island are one of the reasons why the camp exists at all. So that connection with the volunteers allowed me to be able to come back to my happy place and get the spark that I needed to keep doing the work in Florida. And now I have a research project in Florida that I started while I was still employed by National Audubon in Florida, where we're tagging black skimmers. We're learning about the different diseases that they've been getting down in Florida. We're learning about how they move, where they go, and hopefully the answers to the questions that I'm asking, and I'm going to answer them through this banding project, we're going to be able to help keep skimmers in Florida for a long, long time. And without being able to come back to Hog Island, and without the dedication of that volunteer group, I might not have gotten that spark, and I might be doing something completely different right now that's not even recognizable. And then to come full circle, that spark and that flame being ignited in me over and over again for the last several years came full circle to where I am right now, which is back here as a regular employee working on Hog Island permanently as my permanent job. So I have to really, I owe a big debt of gratitude to the Friends of Hog Island volunteers for enabling me to keep doing what I was doing and kind of lighting that fire for me when it started going out. So that's the kind of impact that I think a volunteer can have in a conservation setting that they might not even know that they're having. I'm sure none of the volunteers knew when I came back that that's the kind of change they were affecting in me, but it was, and that's what was happening. And I think that can be true for any conservation volunteering that you do. It doesn't have, of course, I want you to come volunteer for me because I think it's the best volunteer job around. But if you can come to Maine, you can volunteer at a local Audubon chapter or a local conservation organization, and you can help them do whatever it is they do. If you're, collecting admission fees from people, all of that goes to the mission of that organization, and it can extend out in ways that you don't even realize. Like it could be in a way that it affected me, or these teen campers we have here who leave and they end up coming back being instructors, or they're getting PhDs, they're working with birds, all of that. And all of that's possible because of this team out here, and a team that's really built on the foundation of the Friends of Hog Island volunteers. So I think if you think about it that way, it's a really powerful thing that one person can make a huge difference. And I think that whenever you have an opportunity, if it's your passion to volunteer, and even if the job is small at a conservation organization, you're having a huge, huge impact. And I think we're not going to have questions, even though I wrote that, but I did put a couple of links in here. I would say if you want to be a volunteer, I know all of you do want to be a volunteer now, make sure you go to foe.org after this presentation and sign up. We have plenty of slots open for the 2023 season. And then I guess I'll be taking your questions in a few minutes. Thank you all for indulging me for half an hour.
Thanks so much, Adam, for sharing that presentation and really making that connection between volunteer work and the larger mission. I think that that's a really important aspect of volunteering, and certainly is, makes small things make big impacts when done together. I did share the links for Friends of Hog Island down below, so check those out. And for the Q&A, we will have a live Q&A tonight with both Adam and our next guest speaker, but we'll do that all together. So, but first, let's present our Audubon Bird Connection. Our presentation will be hosted by Diana Braithwaite. Diana is the current program manager for the Audubon on Campus program. This program has grown quickly. We're so excited to learn more about it in her presentation tonight. Thank you, Diana, for joining us and sharing what you're doing at Audubon.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Ava. Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to share a little bit more about the Audubon on Campus program, and really kind of build on what Adam just recently shared as well, talking about the impact of volunteerism in this organization and this huge network that is Audubon, and how our program fits in. So, as Ava mentioned, my name is Diana Braithwaite, and I am the program manager for Audubon on Campus, which is a fairly new program within National Audubon. It was founded in 2018. I joined in 2019, and you can see my really small team here, which I do want to take some time to kind of highlight because they're the folks that really kind of help to make everything happen and help to do the work that I'm going to be sharing a little bit today. And we all come to this work with varied levels of experience, but all of us the three of us have this passion for connecting with college students and really kind of working with them and using our experience to connect college students with resources that Audubon provides. You can see there that my team is made up of two other folks, Gustavo Figueroa and Ray Cecily. Gustavo started with this program at the genesis of the program actually in 2018. I joined in 2019, as did Ray Cecily. Gustavo's been working with college students since he was a college student, managing various clubs and so forth. I have been working very closely with really wonderful college students on grassroots efforts. And Ray Cecily, who's amazing, has actually been with Audubon since he was one of those campers that Adam was talking about. He started off as a camper, not at Hog Island, but he did visit at some point. Later helped to build out the Audubon Center in Ohio, one of the Audubon centers in Ohio, as someone who lived in the neighborhood where the center was going to be built. He then became a fellow within National Audubon and then joined our team as an engagement associate. I'm saying all of this to say is that what Ray's path within the organization is kind of what this program is meant to build on. We know that there are young people from elementary school student campers through high school and college students that are doing this volunteerism and doing this work. And we know that Audubon is local everywhere. There are literally, nearly 500 local chapters. There are, as Ava said, a growing number of campus chapters, over 100 actually, student groups on campuses working towards the mission of Audubon. And we have a whole number of centers and other locations that are part of this network. And the goal is to introduce folks who may not know Audubon as a household name, may not, connect climate change with birding, may not connect advocacy work with birding and conservation, make those connections and have them see this clear pathway from student to volunteer to employee to potential, who knows, local board member and donor within Audubon. And our program was actually started, the spark for the program actually started during the 2017 Audubon convention. As some of you may or may not know, Audubon hosts a national convention every 2 years. It's in person, and all of those folks that I just mentioned, the 500 local chapters, the state offices, the centers, folks from Hog Island, everybody is kind of invited to come. Volunteers, obviously, because that's, who it's for, are invited to kind of converge in one place and, share information about the research they're doing, about the volunteerism that they're doing, and about the opportunities just across this network. And there were students there too. A student group came out, they raised their own money to make the journey to the convention. They did fundraising on campus, the whole nine. And during the keynote speech that the then CEO was facilitating, this student, Tammy Fierro, stood up and said, hi, I'm a college student. I'm here with a whole group of bird conservationists who created a club on campus. We're here. We've been doing this work. How are you going to support us? Like, where are our tools to help Audubon do this work? Because we're willing, we're able, we've already been doing it. But a lot of the tools that are available to us as volunteers are really for folks who might be retirees, might already understand the infrastructure of business, and might have a better grasp on how to get certain things done that we as students need training for. And that kind of lit the spark there, because the folks that were listening were like, yeah, we know that there are students doing this work, on Hog Island, on so many other different parts of the network. There are volunteers that are college age students that are doing the work that, we're constantly trying to recruit, but we're not doing a really great job, per Tammy, in keeping them into the flock, like really creating a great pathway so that they can continue to do this work as a career or as just like a lifelong Audubonner. And so in 2018, a full year later, things moved really fast. We started with 15 pilot schools that would then go on to be the first campus chapters of this program. And in now that we're in 2023, we're on over 100 campuses. So I'm saying all of that to say that this program was started by a college student because they raised their voice to ask for something and to share their needs, and it continues to be advised and piloted by college students. My team are essentially there to act as liaisons for students doing this work and to guide them through the myriad of ways within the vast Audubon network to get involved. What this program is essentially a collective of clubs on college campuses, as well as in some cases, ambassadors who can't really get a club going on their campus for various reasons. But the majority of the folks that work with us are actually student-led organizations that either they were in a college club before they heard about us and decided that they wanted to take on the Audubon mission and join the program, or they heard about us and they decided to start a club specifically focused on bird conservation. And what we do is we walk them through the process of getting established on campus through their college or university. We help them set up their leadership team, and then we begin introducing them to all of the different conservation actions that Audubon has that they can take on as a yearly project. That's kind of the nitty-gritty of the program. What we hope to do is we want to work with the students that have been working with Audubon since they were campers or are just learning about how conservation and bird conservation, climate, advocacy work all intersect and start to see a place for them within all of that. We support the students and their activities both on and off campus. So on campus, they're actively raising awareness about Audubon. They're actively, working to recruit students into different conservation activities, or even just simple things, simple restorative things like just going on bird outings that can really bring folks' awareness to their environment and the impact that just being aware of birds in your area can have on you. But we also support these students off campus. And really the goal is to make sure that there's a pipeline between the students on campus and their club, as well as the local Audubon entities in their area. So really wanting to make a strong connection or help foster that strong connection between college students and a center or a local chapter and the like. We work very closely with all communities of students. So we have student groups that come from community colleges. They actually are some of our strongest campus chapters. We have student groups that are from some of our Ivy League schools. And then we also have student groups from our historically Black colleges and universities. We do have student groups that come to us as kind of conglomerates in a way. So they'll band together across campuses from different schools in the same vicinity to form campus chapters. And essentially we allow them to do that. Basically what we do is we work with you, whether you're a student or a faculty member or a local Audubon chapter leader or volunteer, to find out a way that is respectful of the capacity of the students, knowing that, they have a lot of things going on between schoolwork and, carving out a career for themselves, to create something that makes the most sense for their campus chapter. And we really just want to do this to create this next generation of Audubon leaders, which we are already seeing at this time. What we offer for students in order to do that, so that they're connecting not only with other students on their campus and Auduboners at the local and national level, we also want them to connect with each other across campuses. So we ask students to participate in community calls, which is something that my team facilitate. We also facilitate specialty events and lectures. So similarly to what we're doing here, we will invite other guest lecturers to come and speak to our students as well. We have a wonderful program called How Can I Get Your Job, which is almost like a live podcast where Gustavo Figueroa will interview somebody within Audubon and basically talk about their career path. And it's something that students are invited to take part in and can ask questions about a career in a very intimate environment. We also do offer students the opportunity to check in with us one-on-one so that they can troubleshoot and brainstorm different ideas and projects that they may be working on. Because every campus is different, every student group is different. What works on one campus may not work on the other. And so we really want to offer that hands-on ability to brainstorm with us in real time. So we offer check-ins for students to do that. As students wrap up throughout the year, we ask them to do just simple reporting and not really intense reporting where they're having to write a thesis about some of the things that they've done, but more so a way to really provide an opportunity for them to express their wins throughout the year. And that's kind of the goal of the reporting. I mentioned the program pathways of the ways that the students can kind of get involved with this program, which is an affiliate route, a campus chapter route, or an ambassadorship. Essentially, the affiliates in the campus chapters are clubs, ambassadors are individual students who are not able to make clubs on their campus. And it's usually either a student or a faculty member that has decided that they do in the future want to build a campus chapter. However, they just might need a little more help doing so. What we normally see with our students in terms of their projects that they take on, it's anything from shore cleanups to policy work where they engage in local state days. They also do take part in a lot of native plant gardens. So they'll bring native plant gardens to their campuses as well as the community. We've seen a lot of these native plant gardens go off of their community. We have students that are also involved in the Bird Window Strike program. They come to us maybe having identified a building that's being involved in a lot of bird strikes, and they work to rectify that, whether it be through retrofitting or the like. It really, really does it runs the gamut in terms of the type of work that our students do. I know that I'm kind of at time, so I want to be respectful of Eva and also of Adam, and also to make sure that we get our questions in. But I did just want to say, reach out to us at Audubon on Campus. I know that Eva will drop the link in there so that we can kind of, talk to you about getting started. It is a pretty simple thing to do. And even if you don't think that you have the capacity or know where to start, we can kind of work with you to check it out and check and see what kind of support our team can give you. So I'll stop there, and I'm so excited to be able to answer questions about the program that I wasn't able to get to in the mini presentation.
Thanks so much, Diana. I really appreciate you joining us tonight. I am going to get to some of our questions. The first one is from Facebook, from Kristen. This question's for you, Adam. She wants to know, do you need more volunteers for the summer? And are there specific weeks that people should be focusing on if they want to sign up?
So the answer is yes, I do need volunteers. And I would say weeks in July and August, just off the top of my head, would be ones that I think start there. And if you happen to sign up for one that there isn't space, we can easily chat about how to maybe move you into one where there's more need. So but I would start with July and August.
Great. Next question is for you, Diana. You kind of mentioned this a little bit, but maybe expanding on it a little bit more. The person asked, do campus chapters have connections to other Audubon campus chapters? I know you mentioned the community calls, but do all these campuses all around the country, are they able to kind of network with each other, the young people that are joining?
Yeah, absolutely. And we encourage that. So not only during the town halls, but we also have a Slack community where all of the new campus chapter leaders, as well as the ambassadors, are invited to join that. And they can, message each other, share their wins, ask each other questions. And there are some instances as well where some of our students will present some of the work that they're doing, whether it be at the convention or during special programming that we have specifically for Audubon on campus. And from that, students may ask to make a connection. They may connect because they like the project that the other student group is doing and want to replicate it on campus. So we definitely encourage that, and definitely give the students opportunities to connect with each other and meet each other.
Great. Kind of a similar question for you, Adam. Someone asked, if you're a volunteer at Hog Island, do you get to network with the instructors and Audubon staff that are working there? You talked a little bit about like kind of the job responsibilities, but what are those opportunities like?
Yeah, so certainly the answer is yes. There's a lot of time where you are interacting with, definitely with Audubon staff. So you're conversing with them regularly, and also the instructors. The instructors are really, the top in their field, but also very easy to talk to. They're often interacting with the volunteers. The volunteers get to know the instructors well. So there's lots of, give and take with the instructors and the staff. So plenty of opportunity to network and just get to know all these folks for sure.
Great. This question's for you, Diana. It's about the how do you get a campus chapter on your university? Like, who should you contact? I did provide the website, but is there contact information on there? Do you just kind of email the whole team and somebody responds? How does that work?
Yeah, there's a form on there, a request information form. You just fill that out, and one of our team members will get back to you to either just answer your questions or to schedule a time to talk. But it's really easy to kind of get started. It depends on where you are in your journey. If you're coming as someone who has already established some sort of club on campus, it'll essentially be super easy for you. You're just going to have to provide us with your leadership team, your constitution, and fill out a form. Or, if you're getting started, we can work with you from the ground up to kind of build your leadership team and write out your constitution and the like. So it starts with filling out that info form, and we walk you through those easy steps.
Great. I think one thing that both of you touched on was about, becoming active. One way to be active in bird conservation or conservation in general is by volunteering or joining a campus chapter, getting involved. I know that we have some young birders tuning in. Both of you are professionals. You both have varied backgrounds and skill sets. What other advice would you give to younger people, or even people who are maybe changing careers, if they want to get more involved in conservation, working with birds, other than joining Audubon chapter or trying to find a volunteer type thing? What other suggestion would you provide? And we can start with you, Adam, and then we'll same question for you, Diana.
Okay, for a young person, I would say, like, for me, I kind of knew early on, like, my passion had to do with the beach and bird, maybe birds, maybe something like that. So I would say all these different seasonal opportunities that are out there available to you, try them out and see which one works. And I worked seasonal jobs for a long time before I ended up with even a full-time job. So I did that with a lot of repetition, and of course, I knew I wanted to do bird research and bird banding. So I got involved with projects that would give me those skills that I needed. And I built off those, and I networked in those places. And I did too. I did volunteer at places as well as working seasonal jobs, where I just built that, my network and my connections. I just kind of built built out from there. So I would say if you know your passion, just kind of stick to it. And it's a grind sometimes, and you got to, start at the bottom and work up, but you will get to where you're going eventually. So I mean, that would be my advice.
Diana?
Yeah, I think that's great advice too, Adam. I guess I'll speak for those who may not know their path. I would say, if something sparks your interest, don't be afraid to slide into someone's DMs. Send them a message, say, hey, I saw this, I'm interested in it. Are you taking volunteers? Is there a program? And even if they don't have a program, they might know somebody that does have an opportunity for you. So, take that up, just follow your gut in terms of what you're interested in. And then in terms of like internships and other volunteer opportunities, don't be afraid of the requirements. You don't have to meet all of the requirements for a job opportunity or an internship or something like that. Apply anyway. If something looks interesting, just apply, because you never know what might come of it. We have students that have started off as well, I don't want to tell you to take this path, but we've had students that have started off as pre-med and then through the program decided to go into marketing, right? We have students that are in fashion design and they're seeing the impact of fast fashion and have decided to come and check out solutions, see how they can kind of learn about bird conservation and how that might impact their work with fashion. So there's a niche for you anywhere. You just have to follow your gut and just reach out and apply.
Yeah, Diana, I think that's a really good point. I know that Audubon is trying to really rethink job requirements. I know, at least at the Seabird Institute, who I work for, we've been trying to be a lot more thoughtful about, do we need degree requirements? Is it really more skills? And, just really trying to find opportunities for folks and trying to get people in those positions that are passionate or want to learn more, but not always, like you said, just apply. Even if you're not meeting everything. I'm doing seasonal interviews right now, and I had a couple of folks be like, I didn't have all your requirements. And I was like, no, I loved your resume. It was really varied. And those skill sets here can translate to the skill sets I'm looking for. So I think that's a really great tip to give folks out there, especially when they start applying for internships or jobs or anything. It can be daunting. So yeah, the first step is just putting yourself out there. And with technology and the internet, I think that there's so many free learning opportunities, more so than ever before. So I am always telling like our young birders at Hog Island to take advantage, take classes, watch a free online lecture, just keep learning and try new things. College is a great place to do that. And even things that maybe you don't think you like, it could be the thing you're really good at. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Our last question here is so both of you work somehow either with Audubon. Adam's a former Audubon employee as well, now working for the Friends of Hog Island, but both of you are in this conservation world. Adam, you kind of mentioned that you were always passionate about being outdoors and things of that sort. I'm curious if there was like a pivotal moment or spark that really got you connected to nature. So I'll start with you, Adam, and then we'll go to Diana.
So yeah, I don't remember the exact moment. I know I was a kid that was always out in the yard, like turning over the rocks in the garden and driving my dad crazy, just looking for the things that lived underneath them. So I always had that interest. And then I think for me, what really solidified working on the beach, not necessarily with birds really weren't what I was thinking about when I was even in college, but my grandmother, because when I was young, I like to talk a lot and I like to wake up real early. So the cottage that we rented on Cape Cod was right on the bay, right on the beach. And she would take me 5 o'clock in the morning down to the beach to walk to get me out of the house so I didn't wake up the rest of the place. So in those interactions I had with my grandmother on the beach, picking up shells and sea glass and trying to run through birds, even back then, I'm going to date myself, that was the early 80s, she would tell me that it wasn't nice to scare those birds like that. So she was kind of doing what I did to people in Florida, having them not run through flocks of birds back then. So that kind of really solidified my interest. And I always knew I was going to work a stone's throw from the ocean, and I have my entire professional life. And I think my grandmother, starting in the early 80s, really kind of gave me that spark.
And Diana, how about your kind of like career trajectory? Or how did you get, interested in this type of work? Also, do you have any type of like spark or moment that, defined which direction you were going in?
Yeah. So, I mean, my background is in psychology. So it didn't start out with conservation work. My most recent role before this one was working with a bone marrow donor organization, working specifically with college students to raise awareness on their campuses. Basically, students would come to us wanting to do like a bone marrow donor drive or something on their campus, and we would work with them to be able to educate other students. So, before that, it was also creating programs. I was creating programs where we were getting underrepresented groups, and that definition is pretty open. Underrepresented meaning veterans, meaning people from all sorts of income levels, into different types of careers where you don't normally see those groups. And so those two things really sparked my interest. And when this position became available, it was like all of those things in one that I loved in this one role. Now, in terms of, my spark for the outdoors and nature, I grew up in a city. I still live in a city. So we don't have a ton of nature. But one thing about the city, though, is that we randomly have a ton of like fruit bearing and edible trees growing all throughout the city. So on one block, you might have like a chestnut tree. Another, in my backyard, we had a huge Granny Smith apple tree, and our neighbor had like a boysenberry tree. And then my grandma next door, her backyard was a full garden, like with corn and everything. I don't know how she got those things to grow, but she did. So, there was, there are these pockets of these oasis pockets in the city that I enjoyed. And then as I got older, we would go and visit family in the Caribbean. It's the Caribbean, nature is everywhere. There are animals and things that you don't see up here in a city down there. And of course, learning to respect all of that, knowing that you're growing your own food, knowing that you're not tossing your garbage where you're growing your food, knowing that you're wanting to keep your area pristine and really act as stewards for the animals around you was something that also stayed with me as well. So I'm really happy to be incorporating all of those life experiences into this role, which I hope will also inspire other students.
Yeah, I love that. And it's a perfect example of like a psychology background. I know at Hog Island, we have instructors who are English majors and, all different types of backgrounds. So you can really, and even for I think it's important to think about that our paths through life can kind of twist and turn, and taking advantage of opportunities is probably the best way to really try to figure out where we want to land. Well, I want to thank you both for being here tonight. Adam, for sharing about the Friends of Hog Island. Everyone out there, please go to foe.org to learn more about volunteering or donating, or just, what type of work that they're getting up to. And Diana, the Audubon campus program is, I'm glad to hear that it's flourishing, and I hope that it continues to grow. I think it's inspiring to see these young people on campus. Like you were saying, they're taking the initiative to kind of create these chapters. And I'm really glad that Audubon is supporting that program. Can't wait to see as it continues to grow. And for those tuning in, just want to remind you that Hog Island Audubon Camp, we are so excited to be continuing this lecture series. Our next one will be in 2 weeks, March 9th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We will have Dr. Don Lyons joining us to talk about birds and wind energy. So if you want to learn more about that, we'll be here. You can register on our website, hogisland.audubon.org. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks, everyone, and have a great night.
Thank you.